So I hope you saw the videos. Anyway, I was wrong when I said that Muslims pray six times per day facing Mecca. It's five, and I stand corrected. I always screw that up. Um, so what are some of the things? Can you open the shade too, please, and turn the fan back on? Thanks. First of all, do you have any questions based on what you saw in the videos? Questions about the details, Sunni versus Shia. There are also battles between them early on. Um, okay, I don't see any questions. Yes?
Do you know, the purpose for this?
Why do you have multiple wives in Islam? Why did the Mormons have multiple wives? I think that it has to do with everything from love to family alliances to curiosity, stuff like that. It's. I don't know. I'm not an expert on Islam, so my knowledge has limits. My guess is it has to do with all those things, and it's an issue of convenience. But again, the Shia believes that apparently it's still allowed, and the Sunni do not. So it's like back in the day, Jewish and Christian, particularly Jewish men, were allowed to have multiple wives. Then that changed. Yes, and then yes.
Is anyone allowed inside the camp?
I don't know. The Kaaba. I don't know. That's a good question.
So you think maybe they had multiple wives, so they have a lot of kids?
That's part of it. If you want to increase your population quickly, allow polygamy, which is the marriage of one man with several women if he can support those women. Why? Because a man can give birth to a lot of children, whereas a woman takes 9 months to give birth to a single child, or maybe twins or triplets or whatever. So if your goal, like if you're colonizing a new planet somewhere and you want a population going up, have polygamy. If you want your population to go down, have polyandry, which is the opposite. There aren't many examples of polyandry in actual history, which is multiple husbands for a wife.
I'm just curious, what was the main reason that America got involved in the entire conflict?
Okay. Do you remember the week or two we did on the background to the terror attacks of 9/11?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the answer, but I'll give you a quick answer now. 120 years ago, the world began to transition from coal power to oil power. A majority of the world's stocks of discovered oil have been in the Middle East. So suddenly, a backwater of the world that nobody cared much about because it's a bunch of deserts filled with Muslims now becomes important to the great powers that ruled the world at that time, the European powers and others, because that's where the oil is. The Arabs and Persians and others of the Middle East, Kurds, who had the oil within the last 120 years have become very wealthy. So who controls those countries controls where that country's oil goes. That's part of it. Another reason why we're involved is because we remember the Holocaust, the final solution. In World War I, to get more Jews on their side, the British government invites Jews to return to their homeland of Palestine. Remember, they were kicked out by the Emperor Hadrian after the Bar Kokhba revolt. Well, the British win World War I. So Palestine is going to accept more Jewish settlement. But the local Arabs in Palestine go bug nuts over it. Their leader, the Mufti of Jerusalem, Haj Amin al-Husseini, basically declares a holy war against these Jews and against the British who are letting the Jews come in. In 1947, the British, after 2 world wars, said, "The heck with this, I'm out of here." And in 1948, the State of Israel is established. The moment it's established, 5 Arab armies try to drive the Jews into the sea. They fail. We have many people of Jewish extraction in the United States. We also don't like the fact that Hitler tried wiping out the Jews. The Arabs, many of whom admire the Nazis because they had the same enemy, were seen as bullies and as not being willing to make peace, which most of them weren't, and many still aren't. They believe that Israel is like the Crusader states you're going to learn about in a little while, a temporary enclave of foreigners that they can just keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and eventually they'll be gone. Some Arabs, like the Egyptian army, and in the last year of Trump's presidency, about 4 other countries decided to make real peace with Israel. That's an unusual thing. Um, Israel is an ally of ours. It's the only real democracy in the Middle East, and when Israel has been threatened, we have helped. So, what the terrorists who wanted to destroy Israel decided was, and this is in 1973, after a war called the Yom Kippur War, that in order to destroy Israel, they need to first get the United States out of the picture. So we became the great enemy. And since the 1973 revelation, we have come under increasing terrorist attack.
I was curious just because I was curious if there's any other reasons, and also.
Well, the other reason is that we have been the dominant power since at least World War II, maybe World War I. And they want a new Islamic empire to become the dominant power in the world. So there's that.
Also, I heard that we're going to be removing troops from Afghanistan.
Yeah, we've been doing that slowly for the last 10 years. Unfortunately, Afghanistan is one of those countries in world history that never gets conquered for long because it's incredibly unpleasant, incredibly mountainous, filled with incredibly violent people who are very good at violence, and it's just hard to hold. The Russians tried, the Persians tried holding it, they failed. The Indians tried holding it, they failed. The Russians tried holding it, they failed. The British tried holding it, they failed. The Soviets, communist Russians, tried holding it, they failed. And we've been there. We've not tried to make it part of our country or part of a colony or anything like that, but we wanted to fight the Taliban. Unfortunately, the Pakistanis have been shielding the Taliban from us, and so the Taliban have been waiting for the last 20 years to come back. And when we step out, that's exactly what they're going to do. Good questions. So, the descendants of Mohammed split, but they still have a lot to do. So, let's see. I guess I'm going to use this one. I should use green, because green is the color of Islam. So, Mohammed has captured Arabia. Basically like that. If you can't see, just imagine it. I suppose I could do it over here. Yeah, I'll do it over here. Trouble is, there's some other marks I made. I'll get rid of them at some point. But I'm going to just trust we can figure this out. Watch the water bottle. So, Muhammad in his lifetime conquers the Arabian Peninsula. Here. In the time of Muhammad's children, the Persian Empire is conquered and brought into the Islamic world. It's conquered as quickly or more quickly than by Alexander the Great. So now the Islamic world includes Arabia and Persia. The Emperor Heraclius, who had just conquered Persia after fighting back decade after decade, was kicked out by the Muslims. Then, in the time of Muhammad's grandchildren, the attack goes westward. They take Syria, Palestine, Egypt, North Africa, and they cross into what we now call Spain. In the time of Muhammad's great-grandchildren, they then mostly complete the conquest of Spain and Portugal and invade northwest France. The reason they don't come into Europe directly is because of the Byzantine Empire. So they conquer an empire stretching from the Atlantic Ocean, and they move into the Indus Valley of what we now call Pakistan. They control the largest land empire in human history up to that point. In fact, why did I say land empire? They control the largest empire in human history up to that point, stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the Indian border. How can they do this? What is it that makes them so darn good at war? Well, there are two things. First off, the Bedouin Arabs who lead these armies are desert tough. Desert tough means they're used to pain and suffering and overcoming it, and they don't have any water fat on them. The other is they are psychologically ready to die right here, right now for victory. Because the jihadi, whatever their sins in life, go straight to paradise. So if your life stinks because you've screwed up a lot and you want to make things right, find a holy war, go fight and die in it. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And you go to a special part of paradise. And that special part of paradise is designed for young men from the desert. It's a garden of delights with water fountains, sweetmeats, and tasty fruits, and 72 buxom sex kittens provided by God Himself for your pleasure for eternity. God gives you a harem of 72 virgins, and these virgins will be your wives forevermore. So, if your life is unpleasant and you want to go to that paradise, just die in battle today. What that means is that there's a good portion of the Arab armies of these conquests willing to die in battle right here, right now. And that means they're going to do things that other armies won't, and it's going to bring them victory. So the Arabs, person for person, are tougher than anyone they fight because they come from the desert, harshest environment around. And they're also, so many of them are willing to die right here, right now for victory, die fighting, that they conquer this massive empire. And where we're going to leave things is with that conquest. And next time we'll talk about what happens at the high point of it. Any questions, comments, or thoughts? Yeah.
So you said that Mormons practice polygamy.
They did at the beginning, up until the time that Utah became a state.
So I am a member of the Church of Jesus
Of Latter-day Saints. Yeah. Wait a moment.
And that's actually a big misconception.
Okay.
I'm not going to say I know everything about.
Give me the truth as you see it. I want the class to hear it, and then we'll move on.
Joseph Smith, like one of the founding leaders in 1830 of our church.
Yeah.
He did have a second wife because that was what was necessary at the time
to expand the faith and the people.
Well, for that person that he married specifically.
Okay.
But we did not actually practice polygamy. That happened.
Okay.
Once.
Thank you for the clarification. It's not what I've learned, but I accept that is what you believe, and it may be true. That's me trying to be as respectful as I can. And since I'm not an LDS member, you probably know more than I do. Thank you all. Have a good day.